All right, guys, let's be vulnerable. We are not on this side of the spectrum. The 10, 20% returns a year by investing in the S&P 500, maybe investing in Bitcoin, maybe buy some gold, some silver. No, we don't want to turn our 10 grand into 12 grand. We are on this side of the degenerate spectrum, right down the end where we want to put our 10 grand in and take $1 million out. We want the micro caps, the altcoins, the gems that are going to skyrocket, and we don't want them to take 4 years. We want them to take a week maximum. And here on the channel, we are constantly on the hunt for the next 100x return. We plot them here on the Hall of Fame calls based on who has recommended the last 100x's, and we've got some insane results. We don't need to go through them in this video because I have something really important. To be honest, I feel like over the last 18 months of researching these 100x coins, everybody's been asking me like, what is the next coin? Where is it? What niche is it? Is it DePIN? Is it going to be AI? Is it going to be gaming? Is it going to be GambleFi? Is it going to be a layer 1 that's going to be launching? And most common is, when is it going to 100x? And until I found this graph, which I'm going to be revealing to you in this video, I found it really hard to explain exactly when we are going to get our 100x returns. So we don't fluff around at the start of these videos. We're jumping straight in. I've got a nice presentation for you because you need a little context before we end on that big graph, which is really going to empower you to know when those 100x return coins are ready to 100x. So let's start wide. If you're trading crypto and you want to make a 10x, 50x, 100x, there's only 3 strategies you can use to get it. The first is technical analysis, applying graphs and Fibonacci sequences and slants into the actual graph and trying to project which way the token is going to bounce. Number 2, you got fundamental analysis. How much revenue is the token making? Who's on their team? How much assets do they own? And then trying to calculate what market value that should be valued at based on the fundamentals. And 3, we have social arbitrage. Now, I've colored these in because I'm personally biased. I'm going to show you why I'm biased in this video. But the first 2, they're used for the stock market and it's performed decently well in the stock market, but still, this is crypto. It's like bringing in technical analysis is pretty insane. Let me show you an example. This is blockchain bets right here. This was a gamble, it still is, a GambleFi project on the Binance blockchain. You can see it was priced here at 0.003 cents, so 1/3 of a cent. Went up to the side, down a little bit to the side, up, down to the side, up a little bit. Okay, if you were applying technical analysis to this, it may look something like that. The technical analysis traders draw things on top of the graph and then try to project where it goes. Me personally, I don't know if you can tell by this image, I'm biased. I don't love technical analysis in crypto. However, I do think it might be helpful trying to figure out where the resistance is and if it breaks through, if we're going to continue down or continue up. But no more than 20 to 30% is it going to be assisting you. And a lot of people depend on it like it's a 100% sure thing. Okay, so technical analysis, red, don't love it. But what about fundamental analysis? Well, that would be looking at blockchain bets, this graph once again, and being here and be like, oh, are we going up, down, sideways? Well, let's have a look. These are the fundamentals. So they have 1,300 active users, 8,000 bets. They had $76 million of BCB, total revenue, 8 million BCB. They had 100 plus active players, which isn't really that much, to be honest. Total registrations, 250. Revenue, $14,000. 100% of revenue goes to users. Okay, this was Feb 13th, 2023, very much close to around this time. So it's like, all right, well, if that's the stats, it's not very impressive to think their revenue is literally only $14,000. This is likely to be going down, which, if that's the conclusion we drew, would be very wrong. We're going to show you exactly how much blockchain bets went up and why, but this is the problem, the flaw with fundamental analysis in crypto. This was Helium. They're basically a decentralized internet infrastructure that was being built and still is being built. They, however, hit over a $5 billion market cap in the last bull run. But at that exact time, their revenue was $6,500 a month, hitting a $5 billion valuation. They also raised $365 million and had people spend $250 million on buying the actual routers. Now, not crapping on Helium. I think they're probably going to make a huge comeback and do quite well. But if you applied fundamental analysis to this project, you'd just be in a lot of hot water because you would expect it all to go down. However, before we apply the third philosophy of social arbitrage, let's have a look at what blockchain bets actually did after this point in the market. So here you go. It absolutely rallied from 5 cents all the way up, so 0.5 cents all the way up to 5 cents. So that's over a 10x return in a very short period of time. Now, unexplainable by technical analysis, unexplainable by fundamental analysis. However, not unexplainable when you realize that's exactly when Alex Becker bought a bag of blockchain bets. And this is what we call social arbitrage. It's knowing when people who have influence on the market. Becker obviously has 1.5 million people on YouTube, 1 million on Twitter. He's known as a crypto influencer. He's one of the most influential people on the market. And when he buys things, people also want to buy it. You can't factor this stuff in using any other mechanism. And in fact, I've got hundreds of examples of this. This was Citus Heroes just a little bit later when he bought it here, and it went 5x in 15 days. Okay, cool. So you know where I personally stand, a lot of you guys stand, is we want to be doing social arbitrage trading. We want to know when the big influencers and best traders in the world are getting into tokens, let them do all the research for us, let them have the influence, and just jump in exactly when they jump in. However, this is getting to the graph now, because this also isn't a 100% sure thing. Sometimes an influencer like Becca or Crypto God John will get into a project or tweet about a project, put out a YouTube video about a project, and it still won't pump. And you're just like, wait a second. Why does it pump 60% of the time and 40% of the time it just flattens out or even drops off? And then we're just like, well, this is annoying. We can't depend on any of these trading things, and crypto's just screwed no matter what we do. Well, I've been analyzing these Hall of Fame calls, all the best calls that all the biggest influencers have been making. And the variable that we're missing is this graph right here. The fear and greed index, which I'm sure you've seen this before, but we're going to do something to this graph to really help you understand when the 100x's are ready to pop. You can see the graph is pretty self-explanatory. This is the time down the bottom, and then the fear and greed index is basically how fearful or how greedy is the traders and society who are buying and selling this token. We've actually got a breakdown here on how they get to the number of the fear and greed index, because it ends in just one number like this. So say today the fear and greed index is 38, and it gets plotted on this graph. And how they come up with that number is based on the volatility, the market momentum, social media, the dominance, and the trends, something like Google Trends and what people are actually searching for. So it's a pretty awesome metric to actually keep monitoring. Why? Because the market correlation is insane. And obviously in hindsight, of course it is, because it's going to be factoring in the price and the movement of the token in the next day's fear and greed index. But you can see here in the blue is the price of Bitcoin, and the fear and greed index is the greens, orange, and reds. Basically, as Bitcoin rallies, it's going to be people who are greedy. As it drops, it's going to be people who are fearful. Great, pretty straightforward. How do we use this to know when the 100x tokens are coming? Well, it's pretty easy. We just have to swap out these words over here on the side. So there's 5 categories of fear and greed: extreme fear, neutral, greed, and extreme greed. And right now we're sitting just below neutral. I actually think we've popped into neutral. I saw on Twitter today, 51 seems to be the neutral fear and greed index after a little bit of downswing for the last 2 to 3 months. And just to give you a little context too, when did Alex Becker make this blockchain bets purchase? Well, it's right here. It was about November 20 when the fear and greed index was more in the greed, so things are more likely to pop. When he makes recommendations or purchases, but the fear and greed index is lower, less tokens pop after he buys or tells people to buy them. And therefore, this nice little rainbow chart here is basically the last variable you need to know when you're doing your social arbitrage trading. If you see an influencer or a really high quality trader who's got really good results, buy something. Go and check the fear and greed index, because if it's in the bottom tier down here of extreme fear, basically nothing is going to be 100xing, or definitely nothing is going to be popping. Now, this is where we get a little bit skewed from our 100x's, because I've got none, few, some, most, all. This basically is the 2 to 5x sort of range. Just because extreme greed is going on and Crypto God John goes and buys a token, it doesn't mean it's going to 100x, but it does most likely mean that it's going to 2, 5, or 10x. If the fear and greed index is just in fear, so 20 to 40 range, a few tokens will pop. So you got to make your calculations and take the risk that you want to take. If it is in the neutral zone, some will pop. We saw one recently. Crypto God John both bought and recommended on his Twitter at about the $9 million market cap this new meme coin, Jen Hassan Huang, which is the founder of NVIDIA, and it did at the peak here about a 2.5, almost a 3x. Of course, if you do want the inside edge into social arbitrage trading, You could have seen this call inside our Rubicon wallet tracker, where this is Crypto God John's private account tweeted JHH and how he got into it down there at the $9 million market cap level. But you can literally come in and set up your own Telegram bot. This is all inside our inner circle, link in the description below. And you can see when people and big influencers like Crypto God John, Alex Becker, even people like Elon Musk or Andrew Tate buy or sell new projects. And when those influencers are tweeting about those projects or talking in their private discords, we'll be sending those notifications through your feed so you can get into opportunities like this. Now, when the fear and greed index is into the greed zone, you have most projects that influencers and big time traders buy into pop off, like 2x's, 3x's, 5x's. Back in March, which is here, you can see the fear and greed index was in the most to the all phase. Almost everything that I bought was making profit. And of course, if we hit the extreme greed phase, I'm not going to hesitate to buy almost anything. However, the asterisk is, if you're buying over the long term, if you're trying to buy and hold, you can see on this graph, when's the best time to buy and hold? Well, honestly, if you buy any time in the red zone and just held, you would wait and the market would turn around and you'd sell in the green zone. So if you are buying in the extreme greed phase, know that this has to be a short-term trade, because otherwise, if you just keep buying in the green phases and selling in the red, you're not going to be making a lot of money and you definitely won't hit your 100x returns. So moral of the story overall, and the way that I personally view my trades, is when things are really greedy, the retail money's flooding in, hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars being added to the markets, that's when we make these crazy plays and we get in and we get out. Before the whole entire Ponzi scheme and vaporware crash to the ground, where am I putting my gains? I'll roll them back into Bitcoin, of course, because that is the most stable of all the cryptos. I hope this helps you find that next 100x token. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.